Welcome to another episode of Metaverse Studio, brought to you by Phygtl, an AR Web3 platform that lets brands create immersive experiences for their users, unlocking a new dimension. And without further ado, here comes our host, Tommaso Di Bartolo.
And we are live to another episode. Welcome to Metaverse Studio, where we are interviewing Web3 minds to do what, Tommaso? To deconstruct value creation. So what's value creation in the Metaverse? And today I have the great pleasure and the honor to be with two phenomenal panelists. I would like to kick off things to introduce Anino Emuwa. Anino is the Managing Director of Avandis Consulting in France and the founder of 100 Women at Davos. Her mission is to accelerate gender diversity in leadership, particularly in emerging technologies, entrepreneurship, and the corporate world. Anino, what a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Tommaso. Thank you very much. Delighted to be here.
The pleasure is all ours. And Caroline Johnova, Chief Operating Officer of WEYU. Caroline Johnova is a multi-disciplinary creative tech leader working across metaverse production and tech for good initiatives, as well as blockchain and NFT to create the next generation of interactive experiences for Web3. What a pleasure to have you, Caroline.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Metaverse Studio and deconstructing. I was just this morning checking some news, and I liked one of the headlines that I read was, okay, we are 10 months in a bear market, in maybe an NFT bear market, right? And this is not the first time that crypto is in a bear market or that innovation in general is in a bear market, right? And usually when markets are down, entrepreneurs are up. That's what we used to say here on the Bay Area, meaning we are actively doing things, right? Speaking of doing, speaking of what's coming next, right? What are you seeing that is right now relevant, intriguing in the space of metaverses in connections with the NFTs? Maybe I'll kick off things with Caroline. What are your thoughts? What can you share with our audience today?
Yeah, so I guess from my side, and that really relates what I'm currently working on as well, is just the adoption and the tools that we currently have in the market. I think, as you just mentioned, all the entrepreneurs are coming up right now with different ideas how to actually bring tools to bring more users and masses specifically to the space. So, I spent the past year just trying to figure out the easiest ways how to, for instance, make artists and different Web2 brands be able to really quickly launch an NFT collection without, external factors like financial or the tech knowledge behind that. And so right now, I'm really impressed with what is coming out, and especially in that building stage, specifically for NFTs and the metaverse itself as well.
Why don't you double click on that? So you're saying you were building tools, so empowering others, right, to get on boarded, right? And now you touched upon NFTs, right? What exactly are you seeing kind of either trending or maybe the next generation of NFTs? Can we say that next generation of NFTs?
Absolutely, yeah. So what I'm trying to point at is essentially no-code tools. So I think no-code tools are really, really essential for the adoption of this whole space. And, for instance, starting with the NFT Studio as a no-code tool where anybody can deploy and generate collection within a few minutes and completely for free, which is actually something that we just recently launched officially for anybody to be able to use and white label and use across their businesses. But on the other end of it, for instance, is also NFT ticketing, which is another, sphere of the NFT technology bridging into the events and entertainment space. So
I love it. Anino, what are you sensing? What is in this bear market right now kind of the light at the end of the tunnel? What are you seeing that is moving and shaking in the metaverse / NFT that we might want to coin as something coming up next?
You see, that's the thing, when you talk about a bear market, then people get, spooked, right? And people think, oh my goodness, what is happening here? What's happening in the crypto, and is the market disappearing? And so you get, people get worried about that. So yes, the thing is that, yes, because it is tied to some respect with that. But what I actually see and what I find completely fascinating is the rate at which luxury brands, right, and brands are moving in that space. Now, when they come, they don't come on their own, right? The reality, and this is why we want to encourage people, they come with budgets, right? So there's a lot of spending that is coming into that market, right? Even if these brands are not getting the returns yet, you hear some stories and people say, okay, I can't remember which of the brands it was that had a big event, and what was the capacity and who came, and it wasn't well. But the point is that people are investing. So this is an investing phase, right? So I'd say that the luxury brands and big brands, including sporting brands, are entering into the market. I think about 6 to 8 months ago, it was all about, when I say NFTs, as in individual startups who are working on NFTs, focus on the graphics, the designers, the artists, etc. We're still having that, but now being backed by some of the biggest brands in the world. So that, I think, is what is really exciting now in that space. And also, Caroline, I love it when you talked about NFTs and eventing and all of that. And I got an invitation, right? I didn't know anything about it, and next thing I just got it dropped, and this was an NFT. I got invited to the podcast. So those kinds of things are also very exciting, right? Bringing into the space. But certainly, I think is the rate at which big businesses are going into space. One thing I'd like to mention there is that we need to, I know we'll talk about metaverse, we need to talk about two things, right? Because we talk about metaverses and not just a metaverse, right? Because the big tech companies are developing something which might not necessarily right now be on the blockchain. But I guess we'll talk about that later.
That is very intriguing. So on one hand, Caroline says that onboarding with no code tools, right? So I think I want to pause on a couple of those words, right? Because maybe there is the one or the other, obviously, that is a pro in our audience, right? But still 99.9%, right, is not a pro, right? So no code tools are tools that empower a third party, us, right, to easily do something within this realm of what we call metaverse or Web3, right? Things like getting easier into this world, getting deploy a unique digital assets, also known as an NFT, into this world, right? Or even get to a point where no code tools empower you to create digitally either environments or digital assets in collaboration with others, right, in order to enrich this experience that we are embarking upon, right? And then Anino mentioned a trend, or something that we are seeing compared to a couple of months ago, right? Is there's literally this wave, right, of enterprises, corporation wanting to explore and experiment and dip their toe, literally, right, into this new experiences. And within your phrasing, right, you mentioned that even though they most potentially are not yet monetizing, right? And I think it was very, very nuanceful to say that, because at the end of the day, every time that we get into innovation, at the beginning of innovation, the first step is always experimentation that leads to knowledge, right? And so it's not necessarily as a goal number one to monetize right away, but definitely you don't understand innovation on paper. So you need to experiment, right? One of the last, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, a couple of hours ago, was announced that Walmart joined the world of metaverses with Roblox, right? And so we see really these experiences. What makes an experience? Do we want to go in this direction? Like, we're talking about experiences in the metaverse, right? So what is an experience in this new world? What differentiates an experience in this new world compared to, should we say, the previous tools, right? Some are calling it Web 2, social media. What is different, right? What adds more benefits? What is the beneficial part for the users? What's the beneficial part for the brands? Caroline, you wanna take that one, and then go to Anino?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think when you just said that, it immediately made me think about the internet and how we know the internet right now. And I'm always telling somebody who doesn't really understand, what metaverse could look like or become, to imagine if there was a way to build a better and new internet. let's just say one that was much more secure, decentralized, and had actually the power to transfer the way that people interact with each other and have the power to create new economy with the digital world. So, obviously Web3 technology enables that essentially in the future, and hopefully we'll see a lot of use cases popping up, like with Web2 brands as well, but mainly with companies that are already in the space right now. And then that will really open like a whole new world of exciting business opportunities to be explored, and defying actually the laws of physical reality. So while you're asking like what that can bring to Web2 brands, I think that's just a new connection with their audience. So how they can really explore, some marketing practices through this new technology. Like it's a whole new relationship with their consumers. So I think this is something I'm personally really looking forward to, because I see some of these use cases already happening with Starbucks and Walmart, like you just mentioned. But I'm really, really waiting for that big push when that's actually going to become a reality for most of the companies out there.
Anino, what's your take?
Caroline, I totally agree with you. The use cases are really very exciting when you look at them, and there's so many. I think when we started this journey, it was mainly focused on gaming, right? A lot was to do with gaming. And we've seen that really change, right? Or at least more use cases in recent months. Now, if we look at going into fashion, for example, see what's going into fashion, right? Now, there are two parts. There's so many areas, but two parts. One is on the design part, right? And it's just amazing seeing these, designers and artists and what they can come up with AI in terms of design, right, in the metaverse. The second side is in terms of users, right? So it allows you to experience that fashion, right? Experience it in terms of how you can wear it, how you can look at it, how you can experience it, right? And we're talking, right now we're still talking about, some of the top luxury brands, right? So, most of us won't really walk into these shops, right? Or posh shops have a look at these things normally. But this allows, more inclusiveness, because people can experience it, right? Because you don't necessarily have to buy it, let's put it that way, right? Those costs. So it allows more inclusivity in the space in terms of creators, designers, and also from users. And so I think that's, I think that these different use cases are quite a little bit, exciting, and to see what people are doing with it. And it's not just a question of having design in a different space, right? But the types of designs are completely different, things that we haven't seen before. So it's a different level of creativity as well that is really very exciting, and it's not what we've been used to so far. So, those are some of the things that we're seeing. But I think that one of the main things is a bit of a catch-22. If we say that if the metaverse, where it will be in 10 years, right? Assuming we were at the sort of in the middle of COVID, right? Where the metaverse would be in 2 years, what a different experience we'd have had, right? We wouldn't be doing Zoom, for goodness sake, we would be having these more interactive experiences, right? But at the same time, it was because of what we suffered during COVID that really drove that creativity, that innovation, right, and that interest in how can we experience, right, using the internet's technology in in a different way that seems more physical, but not necessarily having to experience it in a physical way as well. So it's a bit of catch-22. So, but I think that's what makes it, I think, different, really, and new and exciting.
So on one hand, we're saying, go ahead, Caroline, please.
Sorry, maybe if I can just to add on that, I also, what really impresses me is the possibilities in the space for anybody in the world. Like, I think specifically with Web3 and the metaverse, we really came to the point where this technology doesn't have any boundaries. So like you just mentioned, anybody can connect to each other, but also co-create. And I think that's really beautiful use case for brands and their consumers to be able to actually create together. So I think this is a completely new angle of the economy and where it's heading. So this is, I just wanted to add on to that because that's the part I'm really, really excited about.
This podcast is powered by Phygtl, with a special guest from Women of the Future. To Metaverse.
Tommaso, I don't think we're going to let you get to the next question because this bit is so important, right? And that is when we talk about decentralization of blockchain, but in a different way, right? And we're talking here about real concrete examples rather than just being theoretic. Now, I'm part of deal. We're going to launch the NFT in a few weeks, right? And what's interesting is that when they were looking right for people in community management, right, and this is a French organization in France, and that was it. And then they said to me, oh, by the way, because I'm from Nigeria, and they said to me, oh, Anino, we have two community managers who are from Nigeria. Now, how did they get them? Because they had, they put out the word in different DAOs and they happen to be from Nigeria. No boundaries, right? So this is, I think, critically important for talent to be able to find where opportunity is without being restricted. And you might not even, you don't know who they are, or you just know it's their work and how good they are. And that's what's important.
Yeah, I love that. There's so much to unpack here, right? So Caroline, on the one of the last things, actually, let's wind a bit back, right? So on one hand, it was mentioned that there is a new internet, a more secure internet, right? Which I like always also to translate that the old internet, right? If there is a new internet, there is an old, right? So it hasn't reached its limits, right? So we have been asking for having a voice. We have been asking for owning data. We have been asking for contribution, right? And now this new realm is offering that, right? It's empowering us, right? But then at the other hand, also Anino mentioned that it first started with the gaming. So I think there is a misconception out there, right? Which the internet, the metaverse, what we are seeing or let me actually even rephrase that. What we are seeing out as of today is categorized as a gaming on a blockchain, right? Which offers a certain traits, certain attributes of becoming a metaverse, which is a collaborative environment, which is an immersive environment, right? But primarily it's gaming, right? And I want to almost pause here, right? So we are in this first phase of the meta, which was born or which awoke from a gaming industry, and now it's leading into other parts, right? And then Anino went on and double clicked on fashion, and within the fashion, the ability on one hand to create / design with artificial intelligence, but also you touched upon users, right, of us, the way that we express ourselves, right, which opens up a huge chapter in the metaverse, which is our identity, right, our digital identity, right, which ultimately in a couple of years we are going in an ideal scenario, right? We own the data, we own the communication, we own what we like, we own the preferences. Owning meaning because the technology empowers us, right, to have our data in a backpack, I like to call it, right, and navigate from environment to environment. And this brings me what Anino said, well, are there multiple metaverses, right? In my book, I like to describe the metaverse with a capital M, which is the aggregation of all decentralized application that on there you have immersive experiences. So if you collect all of them, right, and you have connection and import and export capability, then you have one metaverse with a capital M. As long as you have just silos like we are seeing as of today, right, you have metaverse decentralized application, right? Why don't we pause a second and reflect upon the word co-creation, because I think that this world has a lot to unpack, especially because it has still a connotation with the Web 2, but it's actually the way that we are using it, right? So let's say we in the Web 3 realm, right? It's there is way more to be understood. What can we co-create? Caroline said there is a user co-creation, there is a collaboration with brands. Caroline, may I ask you to expand upon it? Imagine that you're talking with somebody who has never heard about co-creation in something called the metaverse. Like, what can I do? Walk me in a user journey through it, please.
Absolutely. Actually, maybe I'll give you a clear use case that I participated on. So this was related for NFTs for Good, actually. This is sort of how WEYU started this journey. We launched a collection of NFTs with the United Nations. And when you talk about co-creation, it immediately struck my mind because this collection was really, really special in the way that it collaborated with refugees worldwide. So we managed to connect to United Nations, specifically UNHCR, where we had artworks that were actually broken up into many pieces. And each of that piece was recreated alongside of 144 refugees from all over the world who actually like digitally hand drew each piece and were paid on the blockchain for their work. So, co-creation, this is one use case that this technology can be literally leveraged for people that need this the most as well. So maybe, just to have a little bit of a think about this, because of course the possibilities are completely limitless, but I also feel that it really connects us to everybody in this planet. It really connects us to countries that are third world countries that did not really have this access before, and they actually can make a living out of this right now. So this, I think, is a really important aspect of co-creation and what I really meant when I talked about that.
Phenomenal.
Caroline, I love that, and that really goes to the heart of a lot of the stuff I'm doing on on the SDGs and my work with the UN Women. What I think is particularly important or notable, let's say notable, is in what you described, for example, organizations were able to do that, right, in the past, right, in the previous Web 2, in terms of, they probably called them collaborations, right, when they had existed for a long time and built a reputation, right? But what is happening now is seeing, right, now is that you can co-create at the beginning. So it's not a collaboration in the sense that we're working together on a project, but is that we are working together from the beginning, right, in designing this thing for whatever purposes, and in this case, obviously for good. And I think that's what's really exciting because it's a new, as young, as an innovative space, right? And what we're seeing is that, with the younger generation now, what you're actually seeing is that people are interested in the for good part, right? It's not something which is an add-on; it's something which is designed into the system in day one. And how do you do this? Because if you try to do it by yourself, it's quite difficult, right? But if you are able to work with organizations, right, that already have this as their raison d'être, then it allows you to be able to design that into it at the beginning. I think another thing in terms of co-creation that is important is community. And the communities are really very diverse, right? And I believe that what we see is communities being built. And these are communities cutting across whatever it is. Just share a common interest, but you don't have to be like us or be the same. No, so multiple identities and multiple backgrounds, and coming from different areas and different spaces, right? And I think that alone is creating the foundation from a lot of co-creation. Right. So whether you're an investor, whether you're an entrepreneur, you are in the marketing field, you are a designer, whatever it is, we talked about women of the future, and look at that, in terms of the co-creation on that. So I think our community as well is helping to power this co-creation that, we're talking about.
Community is the core, right? It's fundamental. It's almost the engine because it's the mindset. It's how we breathe, how we operate, right? It's almost a virtue. It's not what you say, it's what you do, right? So what would you ladies share here with the audience? We are partnering here with Women of the Future, right? What would be an initial step for somebody who is maybe in tech but doesn't really, maybe is scared about entering Web3 because she doesn't know how to enter Web3, doesn't know how to start, right? Both are nominated of Women of the Future. Where to start? Maybe Caroline, you want to go first?
Absolutely. Actually, I get this question asked quite a lot because me personally, I don't come from a tech background whatsoever. I come from a very much marketing and branding side of the story on a creative aspects of things completely. So I was never really interested in big tech up until I discovered NFTs and the technology and how that can really change the aspect of the creator economy. So that really struck me. But I always tell everybody, don't think that you're not coming from a tech background, that this space is not for you. Mm-hmm. That's completely false. Anybody can really find a space within this. It's a technology. So innovation comes from any industry. And I think, speaking of communities, for me personally, because I'm part of a community right now of women and they embody me and we support each other, I feel so welcomed. So for anybody who would like to join the space, I think you just need to find these little allies with you that will stick to you and build this whole community around you of people that are already working on the similar things or similar aspects. So I think this completely also changed the way people work, because right now we're not based on location, we're not based, on a let's just say religion, on a anything based on prior to this. We're really based on communities and what our interests are, and this is where we fit in based on that. So yeah, don't be afraid to start in. Just reach out to people who are sort of already in the space, and I'm sure they will happily welcome you with open arms.
Caroline, this is so true. This is so true, and I think that's what makes the Web3 space, right, the metaverse, very different, right, from previous from Web2, in the sense that your communities are very welcoming. And before, we thought of communities as something belonging to other people, right? So you need to get invited, right? But this is very different. So one, I think that is absolutely important to be part of a community, join a community. One thing, and especially for women, I think why that is key is that there was some recent research that was done, and which talked about, this goes back, goes back to the whole thing about gaming, right? Where people think it's about gaming, and for very often for women, that wasn't what they wanted. So the research was about what do women want, and many things, right? But one thing is, you want a space that is a communal space, right? Community is very important. What other people are doing, and warm and welcoming, that's important. Also, and with women, also a little bit more aesthetic. So it's a bit clunky at the moment, right? So it'll get there. So those are some of the things. But I think that what I think it can be frightening with new technology from a user perspective is to ask the question, okay, I understand that, but tell me, what exactly do I do, right? What do I do? What does that mean, finding community? So the 3 or 4 things that, I would say is that you need to find that community, right? Now, Twitter is probably one of the most important spaces, right, for learning about Web3, about the metaverse. And they're giving on that, so you get a lot of information. There's so many free resources that are out there. So, for example, we have the women of the future, right? The mission impact, actually, sorry, mission impact, which had a training which is free. There's another one which we are actually doing, 1,000 faces NFT, which I believe is tomorrow. It's tomorrow. I can share the link. That is just entirely free of charge, right? And once you start in those spaces, automatically you get a link to a DAO, for example. You can start to interact there, right? Even basic things like, you need a wallet, right? It's your digital identity. You need a wallet. But I don't want to buy Bitcoin. I don't want to. That's not the point. The point is your identity, right? So, you need to go on to get your wallet, go on to MetaMask or somewhere else and get your wallet. It's your identity. And then play around, right? And and try and see what Sandbox, Roblox, see what is happening there, and just play around with it, right? And sort of get a feel for it, really. So those are a few of the things that I think that I would advise, people, especially women, to do. Oh, by the way, oh yes, and join on LinkedIn. We have our Women of the Metaverse and the NFT. Why is that important? Because we have some of the top women, right? But it's an open community. So what we're doing there is actually sharing resources, basic resources there. So you have the opportunity to interact with them, but also getting basic information because they share a lot.
I think just also is also vital. I think, everything starts with education, especially in an industry that is exploring as we go. We're all still exploring. I'm learning every single day from my peers because there's just so much to learn. But I think, like Anino just said, just find your community and don't be afraid to join one of those, because they will be so welcoming. I think all the people that are currently in this space, they are trying to attract more and more people to actually join and understand what we're so passionate about. So don't be afraid to go out there and also to learn and listen in, because we're all learning. So in 6 months, you might be the expert we'll be listening to. So.
Well, Caroline, this is so important. In 2 years ago, many people who are in the space, weren't even there. So the slowest you are is probably about 2 years anyway. So you can catch up quite easily.
I love it. Everything as a step number one is education. Fear not. Join a community, discover within the community, and unlock your potential. It's so beautiful. So I could talk for hours about this topic and the future and what's going on. There are so many nuances to it, right? But everything has a start and an end. We're getting to an end of this episode. I had the pleasure to talk with Anino and Caroline. But before we leave, I actually would like to sync and connect with Anino's and Caroline vision. What if you take me 5 to 10 years down the road? I know it's a lot in the metaverse, but what's your vision? What's your future back perspective, right? How does the metaverse Web3 look like? Anino, what's your view on that? And you are on mute. I don't know if it's on purpose because it makes it more more suspense, right?
I forgot. Okay. I'll take it a bit longer than 5 years, 10 years or more. I think it's a space that, we are going to all be in, at least, the generation that is younger. When I look at, my little nieces, who are, a few, 2, 3, 4, that is the world that they're going to be in. In a few years, they will be, 10, 15, right? That is the world they're going to be in. And we're going to be in. And we're seeing, like, on the high street, the death of the high street, right? All these commercial shops and things. I'm in London, closing down. We're going to be involved in more immersive spaces when we're doing, we're doing things like shopping experiences and all of that, right? We are going to be living within those two worlds, and I hope as well a greener world, a more sustainable world. But I think it's something that is going to be exactly the same way as the internet is in today's world in another 10, 15 years, which is a natural space we're going to explore. But because we are already adults, right, a lot of us are learning, whereas the generation that's coming along, they will be in it right from the very beginning. So we have to be careful that we don't get left behind because we're a little bit afraid and tentative, whereas the younger generation will just be part of it and it'll be part of their education from day one. So I think it's just going to be very commonplace in another 10, 15 years.
Beautiful. Absolutely. Immersive commonplaces. Caroline.
I totally agree with this. And, it makes me so excited because my imagination just runs wild. But, what I really believe is that, like you just mentioned, the generation, which is currently the target group of Roblox, kids in between 9 to 12, they are going to be the leaders of this next tech development. So I really see that happening, especially with VR and AR catching up to, what we're currently theorizing here, and having that whole vision explored through, for example, VR glasses, being able to have a dinner with people from all over the world, just having this technology around. So this is, for me, already hoping that this will happen within like 10 years of time. And also having that creator economy impact of that too, where you can actually have a passive income through some of these tools as well. So yes, a lot to come. Very, very excited. Hope that, I'm going to be like my grandma that is currently using Instagram still. So she caught up. So I hope to be on her level.
I love this view. So let's expect Caroline in a couple of years, in 2 decades, not in 10 decades, right? Being like your grandma and using the metaverse as today we use the Instagram creation economy and immersiveness and being seamlessly integrated. What a beautiful way to wrap up this episode. Thank you so much, Anino Emuwa and Caroline Johnova. And as always, I'll meet you in the metaverse. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for watching our podcast. Stay tuned on our social media network and see you in the metaverse.